Hi everyone, I'm Danielle, Senior Customer Success Manager at Syte. Welcome to our Black Friday Cyber Monday Masterclass, all about AI and emerging technologies. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Alexis Kambor, Senior E-commerce Manager at Perry Ellis Brands, and Syte's VP of Customer Success, Abby Zook.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis. I'm Senior Site Manager for Perry Ellis. I manage 3 of the brands at Perry Ellis International. And I'm really excited to talk about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and AI.
Hi guys, Avizuk, VP Customer Success here at Syte. I've been with the company for almost 3 years now. It's my third Black Friday, and I'm really excited to hear Alexis and share your knowledge.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Alexis. Before we jump in, can you tell the audience a bit about your background in the e-commerce world?
Yeah, sure thing. So I studied fashion merchandising in school. That was kind of my introduction to retail and the e-commerce industry as a whole. From there, I immediately went to Macy's post-graduation. That's where I started my career. And I held a couple of different roles at Macy's. So I was a buyer, a planner, and then a digital marketer for a point of time. Working for a big company like Macy's, you definitely learn a lot. You learn how to focus on data and drive revenue and do everything you can to push the company and revenue forward. And then I joined Perry Ellis International 3 years ago as a site manager, and I've been kind of working in e-commerce ever since.
Great, thank you for that. And we're so glad to have you here sharing your expertise. So without further ado, I think we can get right into things. We'll start by getting a bit more understanding and background of how you approach the Black Friday weekend at the Perry Ellis Group. And then we'll move into talking about AI, emerging technologies, and how they can be leveraged during this holiday shopping season. So with that said, do you want to start talking to us and telling us a bit more about the prep that goes into the Black Friday weekend at Perry Ellis?
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Friday and Cyber Monday are probably the most important few days just to our total revenue as a site and as a business. It's crucial, that time frame. So we are planning for Black Friday and Cyber Monday year round. As soon as we finish up Black Friday, Cyber Monday, as soon as we get back from that weekend, it's right off to reporting on the data, what went right and what went wrong, and how we can improve for next year. So it really is, we are always in Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And that's always kind of the thing that we need to prepare for. It's just such a hyped up retail holiday, and it's almost like a litmus test for the entire retail industry. There's always reporting on it after that weekend closes. So how we tend to approach it is any long-term projects, anything that needs to be front-loaded, we work on at the beginning of the year. So as soon as the new year rolls around, we start thinking about what A/B test should we get into? What things can we react to that we learned from last year? What new products can we test? What can we add to our assortment? And what can we add to our tech stack to ensure a very seamless experience for the following year and just make sure that we're constantly getting better? Getting into the back half of the year, that's when we start focusing more so on our marketing calendar, and it's more all hands on deck. The first 6 months of the year, again, that's all like long-term projects and making sure that we're prepped and that we have all the correct partners and all the correct assortment and the more long-term planning. But then when it gets down to crunch time, it's all hands on deck. We've done all the tests that we can, and we really need to focus on our marketing calendar and reacting to data live time because it's such a crucial time frame to make sure that everybody is focused and everybody is reacting quickly.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it sounds really busy. And what would you say were the lessons that you learned like last Black Friday that you're taking on board and using this year?
Yeah, you learn from mistakes, I think that's why it's so important that as soon as Black Friday closes, you have to do some sort of post-mortem or some sort of reporting to come together and see what went wrong and you can correct for the next year. So I definitely learned from last Black Friday that less is more sometimes. I might think that something would be a great strategy or represent a huge opportunity. I'm always focused on personalization on the site. I think that there's a lot of room for growth with personalization and making sure that every customer feels like it's an individual experience on the site. But during a high traffic time like Black Friday or Cyber Monday, personalization or doing too much or trying to be all things to all people can get you into trouble, and it actually slows down the site. So that's just one anecdote where I tried to personalize an email campaign, but it actually slowed down the send because it was dynamic content. So that was my big learning experience, that sometimes less is more, and you should really only go after the big opportunities just to make sure that you're focused on providing a good customer experience and not getting too in the weeds with everything.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a great plan for this year. And have you noticed any changes in the years since COVID-19, the big e-commerce rush that have had an effect on the Black Friday weekend and the planning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think after the pandemic, there was a period of time of 2 years where there was no option to shop in stores, or at least there was less of an option to shop in stores. And so convenience became the name of the game. And in that sense, there were a lot more qualified buyers for e-commerce, because we were forced to purchase through online, instead of going into a store and trying things on. And so the technology has advanced to make things as convenient as possible, new formats, new product options, new ways of understanding if something fits you correctly, and incentivizing people to buy. So in that sense, I think we advanced drastically over those few years. It's an exciting time to be in e-commerce. You're seeing just such rapid change. And I think that is kind of bringing in more advancement in AI, because we've had to rely on that for a couple of years, and it represents sustainable growth.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of like the Perry Ellis shopper around Black Friday weekend, like what type of audience do you tend to see? Like, do you drive in like the existing customers? Do you see an increase in new customers, new traffic, or is it mainly just like the customers that are after a bargain?
Yeah, that's my favorite time of year, to kind of look at our customers and their behavior. It's definitely changed over the past few years. It used to be all new customers. But now that we've kind of built up our audiences, and we've been providing really good customer experiences year long, we are definitely getting a lot more returning customers for Black Friday. We kind of take this approach that our doorbusters, the items that we're standing for, that represent a big part of our business and our revenue, we want to make sure that they're always on the customer's mind. And so we inject it into those items into our marketing throughout the year, so we can build the audience and make sure that they're coming back when that deal hits for Black Friday. And then they're already familiar. It's good brand building. They know that they can get a total stretch shirt at Perry Ellis, and they know that they like it. And so why not get it in more colors? So I think it's important to make sure that we always have Black Friday, Cyber Monday on our minds throughout the year.
And Lexus, looking at the KPIs, so we're saying the audience is changing a bit, and also changing a little bit. And from your point of view, you're also trying, I'm assuming, to push a bit more kind of clearance sales, and margins are a bit lower. Are you still looking at the classic KPIs, average order value, conversion rates, and revenue per user, or are there additional KPIs you are tracking specifically for Black Friday?
Yeah. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that time frame is really interesting, just for the fact that there's a lot more qualified buyers in the market. And I think a lot of that is a product of the hype of Black Friday. It kind of is its own holiday, and it's a holiday for celebrating retail. So you see all of these people going to stores that maybe they're not big shoppers, but because it's Black Friday, they're going to the stores. Or maybe they don't usually shop on e-commerce, or they don't shop online, but because it's Cyber Monday, they're shopping online and they're going to their favorite brands. So, in that sense, conversion rate is already going to be elevated over that weekend and going into the holidays. Also a product of gift givers. There's just more people that are purchasing, just by the time of year, just by seasonality. There's more people purchasing and more people that are going to be converting when they come into your site. As far as like the KPIs that I focus on Black Friday, Cyber Monday versus the rest of the year, conversion rate, I can pretty much bank on that being elevated over that time frame, just because of, again, the urgency, the hype, and the gift givers. But on top of that, we have much more traffic, and it becomes important to make sure that if we're paying for that traffic, if we have ads and all this time that we're spent trying to acquire these new customers, the site experience becomes that much more important. And in that sense, conversion rate is so much more important, because we don't want to waste money trying to acquire these new customers and get in all this new traffic. I would say that AUR definitely decreases during that time frame, because it is a low margin time frame. It's the deal customer. They're looking for the deal. Otherwise, they're not interested, and we have to get in line with the rest of the market. But I wouldn't say there's much of an impact on AOV. So in that sense, they're buying more products at a lower price. Yeah.
So
I think
basically, you're looking, and sorry. Basically, you're looking to match, the spend that you're putting out on the marketing side and try to understand how you're increasing the performance on the site and optimizing it, because you're going to be bringing in a lot of customers, like you said.
Exactly. There's a lot more eyes on the site, and it just and those are expensive customers to acquire, and all that traffic is it's expensive during peak holiday time frame. So you want to make sure that everything is buttoned up on the site, and that you're turning those visitors into purchasers.
I think it's safe to say that in the last year, we've seen like quite the revolution on the AI scene. It's gone from the buzzword to must-have technology. And it seems like every day there's a new tech solution and a practical application for new and interesting technologies. So what are some of the new technologies that you've been exploring at Perry Ellis, and has anything stood out in terms of like proving value beyond all the hype?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would definitely say that Syte, is a great example of that. So we use Syte for visual search on our website. So if a customer is viewing a specific product, and maybe they don't have it in their size, or maybe they want to see other options at different price points, or they just want to see something that's a little bit different, they can actually visually search on our PDPs and on our collection pages, and see things that are similar in our assortment. To me, that almost already solved a problem that we were already aware of. We know that we have sort of this endless aisle that we've been trying to create on Perry Ellis. We want to make sure that there's something for everybody, thereby increasing our conversion and making sure that customers can find what they're looking for, especially during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So Syte just enhances that experience. Again, if this is a very there are items that sell very quickly. And if a customer does not have their size, that's one less conversion. So if we can suggest something similar through visual search, that alleviates to some degree that issue. And it just makes it much more easier to discover products on our site, and interact with the site as well. Beyond that, I invest quite a bit of time in personalization. I think that is very valuable. So we have a tool that lets us create different experiences depending on your customer behavior. I wouldn't get too granular about it, because at some point the workload doesn't justify the benefit. But it is a really fantastic tool for being able to make sure that every customer feels like they have an individual experience, especially if you have a lot of different product categories where customers have different preferences, and then you can make sure that they're finding those items quickly that they're actually looking for.
Yeah. And where else do you feel that there is potential regarding like Gen AI and where it can be used this holiday season, aside from what you've just described?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a trend out there with fit prediction. There seems to be a lot of tools out there, with the thought being that returns cost a lot of money, and the biggest reason that customers return is because it doesn't fit right. It's not, e-commerce is not like in a store where you can try everything on, and if you purchase, you're likely to keep it because you already know how it fits. A customer has no idea how these items fit if they're a first-time customer. And so we're being able to remove that barrier and give any kind of clarity on how an item will fit using generative AI. That's invaluable, because that reduces return rate, it increases conversion rate, and it just makes the traffic that you're getting to your site that much more productive. So it's kind of a win across the board.
No, it's super interesting and like key in helping drive successful like retailers across the board. However, like in this current market situation, has your attitude toward your retail tech stack changed at all? Like, how do you evaluate what's going to be more or less important to integrate into the Perry Ellis brands?
Yeah, I think maybe earlier in my career, I probably would have been wowed by the bells and whistles. I probably would have, seen all these like really fancy applications that we have in AI that technology is allowing us to do. And I probably would have been like a kid in a candy store and wanting to implement all of them. But now I've kind of adopted more of a practical idea. My thought is that if it's not a problem that we're already aware of, we shouldn't be pursuing that solution. So our customers, they do communicate with us, and that's why it's so important as an e-commerce merchant to understand the data and what it means, and to listen to the customers and what they're telling you, even if they're not explicitly saying it. So we know that our customer is a browse customer, and we know that product discovery is very important. And if they can't find something in their size, it's very frustrating. Or if if our return rate is elevated, the customer is telling us that they don't have clarity on fit. And so digesting all of that information and all that data and trying to find a solution for it, that's where my mindset is in now when it comes to AI. The bells and whistles can wait once we get all the practical matters situated and taken care of, and we're actually listening to our customer, what they're actually looking for.
Yeah. And speaking of the customer, like, have you noticed like a shift in their attitude then to be more willing to use all these like AI and openness, and are there high expectations around this from the customer?
Definitely. I think with the younger generation, I think that there's a lot less hesitance when it comes to using these new technologies and these new tools. Whereas like maybe a decade ago, these tools would have been rarely used. They would have been a nice to have, but maybe not as easily interacted with. Mostly because I compare it to getting a new phone. There's certain features or certain buttons that like you don't know you have, and you don't know until it's pointed out to you or until you kind of get used to it. And I think that's very similar with shopping online. There's all these new tools, and customers are constantly getting bombarded with new ways of discovering product, ads. It's just like information overload. But these days with this new generation, Gen Z, and millennials, they're a lot more open to trying these new technologies, I would say, just because they've been bombarded with it their entire life. They're used to it. They adapt very quickly, and they're very open to it. And they see the benefit in how quickly it can help them get to where they need to be, and have that convenience factor looped into it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
That makes a lot of sense because, I think we're seeing the same. I mean, first of all, it's really nice to see kind of the mature outlook of running after the most shiny or the new shiny stuff. I think that this year we've had kind of this, boom around generative AI, and it's very hard to find or to understand kind of what will be the right application for these things. Also looking at the front-end operations, and are Gen Zs actually adopting a new way of search and how they're adopting a new way of search, on the one hand, and on the other hand, also on the back end, how are we actually kind of leveraging this to either reduce the workload or, combining this with both, automated and manual solutions in order to kind of find the best mix there. And I think we talked about it in some of our conversations as well, Alexis. Looking specifically at Perry Ellis, what are some of the largest challenges that you are solving today with technology? We're looking both from the customer experience and the back end and fulfillment operations, focusing on Black Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it is sort of an all hands on deck situation. And my team, we wear a lot of different hats. We're responsible not just for the site, but all of our marketing to drive traffic to the site. So in that sense, workload is it's always going to be a challenge, and I think that's increasingly so with just how much more demanding the customer is getting, and how much more competition there is out there in the marketplace. So workload, I mean, you could probably drive yourself crazy just trying to make everything perfect. But in that sense, AI has two customers. It has the customer that you're trying to acquire and make a purchase on the site, but you also have the merchant on the back end trying to employ all these new technologies. And so in that sense, AI has dual purposes, where it's also supposed to reduce workload and conserve resources and make things a lot more streamlined. I'm a big fan of technologies that let me set it and forget it, is what I say. So, I think the algorithm should be smarter than me. So I should be able to set in a couple parameters and just kind of let it run. And that kind of help is invaluable during Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and just frees me up to do other things, and frees the team up to focus on just reacting, watching our KPIs, and make sure that Black Friday, Cyber Monday is the best that it can be.
And how do you choose your technology partners? You said that the process actually starts right after Black Friday. But how do we validate and vet and understand that these are the partners I want to move forwards with going into peak season, knowing that, there's no room for mistakes there?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of the tech stack partners that we have adopted and rolled out across our websites, they have been to serve a purpose or to solve a problem that we were already aware of. And that kind of brainstorming usually happens following Black Friday. So we are usually just paying attention to the data, trying to understand, again, what the customer is telling us, if not explicitly, and if not through customer complaints, then just by the data alone, high return rates, low conversion rates, difficulty in the user experience, where they're clicking or where they're not interacting. And then based on that, we kind of go out and look for partners that can help us solve those problems or any kind of innovative ideas that might be able to help us out in those areas for the following season. As far as what I look for, again, I think, there's a younger version of me that probably was more focused on the bells and whistles and whether something looked cool. But now I'm a lot more practical when it comes to that. So I look for a really seamless integration. Again, we're spread very thin. So if there is a way, if our partners can help us with setting up a new tool or generative AI, that's invaluable to me. I do look for a very strong customer success team, obviously, because it's a partnership. And they're probably a lot more of the experts in their particular tool than I am. And so they can almost act like as a consultant and make sure that we're seeing success in employing the new tool. And then I do try to make sure that I'm being practical about it. Again, I don't want to overload the site with bells and whistles because the data tells us that the customer has a resistance to those. If we hit them over the head with AI, they might not respond very well to it. But if it's subtle and it's solving a problem that they're already experiencing, then they're almost unaware that we're employing AI, and it just helps them have a better experience on the website.
That's really interesting because basically you're looking at Black Friday as like a case study, it's like a micro ecosystem that, it amplifies all of the success, but it also amplifies like where the gaps are. And then you're starting this process right after in order to understand, okay, what were my gaps? Because we're going to see them around, all year round as well, I'm sure. And how am I solving them towards next Black Friday and towards the Perry Ellis customer? And that's a really, really interesting process, I think, to run, both internally and with vendors.
Right. It's a very interesting time. It's exciting to be in e-commerce and watch all the data trickle in during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I know we're supposed to be technically on vacation and celebrating the holiday, but it is fun to watch. It is a very exciting weekend.
Yeah, we never get that prerogative.
Yeah, right.
And with all the effort that you're putting into perfecting the buying experience over the Black Friday weekend, we have to talk about what's next. So beyond Black Friday weekend, like what's the retention strategy, like longer term, and like what groundwork do you lay for your customers before Black Friday that can go past that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a time frame following Black Friday, or actually really following the holiday season, where we're still in a very heavily promotional time frame. We just acquired all these customers that have a discount affinity. They were going after the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals, and they were actually saving up probably for that big retail holiday event. And then following that, just to keep them engaged and to make sure that we're retaining those customers that we know already have an affinity towards deals and discounts, we kind of let that linger for a while going into January. So we have a clearance sale or an end of season sale that just keeps that customer that has that discount affinity in mind. And then, going a little bit further into the new year, that's when we start getting a little bit more heavy on the brand content, and we start building audiences. So, as I mentioned before, we have a couple of doorbusters that customers are just in love with, and those are our key items. And, we really stand for them during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But we want to make sure that we're building the audiences for those year round. So we're, pitching similar products to those items, or we're reminding customers about those features, or we're saying, oh, there's a flash sale on these for just today only. And that creates hype and recognition and awareness of these products so that they are continuing to come back for the next Black Friday to get our new color or to get something similar or to, write a review and encourage other customers to purchase during Black Friday.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And in terms of the technology then, thinking about that and the technology moving into 2024, like, is there anything that you at Perry Ellis have in mind that you're like looking at already now for next year or you're hoping to come across?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been like noticing out there, we probably don't focus enough on SEO. Search engine optimization is very important to traffic and to success, and making sure that customers that are beyond Perry Ellis or any of our other sites are finding the brand. I think there's two customers in SEO sense too. It's Google and it's the customers that are actually searching. So there's probably room for us to use generative AI to optimize SEO. I think that's very important, and making sure that we're optimizing not just our search experience, so customers typing in things on Google, but it does save us money in paid search, in our paid ads. So that's something that's definitely a focus. I'm also very concerned with making sure that our return rate is reduced. So I'm going to try to make sure that our fit indicators and our fit experience is as great as it can be. And one of the things that I'm like always focused on is making sure that customers can actually navigate the site. That's probably your biggest responsibility as a site manager or as an e-commerce manager, just making sure that every product has its moment in the sun, and that their customers are getting matched with it or are able to discover that product that would be a qualified buyer for it. Making sure that we're representing the assortment well and just having a very consistent, streamlined, and user-friendly customer experience.
So that actually kind of hits the nail on the head also from our side. I mean, looking at and we just talked, I think, a bit before the webinar. We've had like a few customer meetings in the last couple of weeks, and everyone's kind of focused on SEO, right? Cost of acquiring new customers is just going up and up. We see that, with the very interesting or weird kind of economic climate that we have. And a lot of the focus is going from like, how do we elevate paid to how do we focus and optimize on SEO, and getting in the right customers. And that's also like one of the things where I think, we're focusing a lot on at Syte with our AI tags, where, what we do there is we will enrich or kind of expand on the catalog with more and more metadata. And from there, one of our key initiatives is really kind of using generative AI to leverage these tags and only kind of understanding from the image, how do we build better titles and descriptions that are very much optimized to, each of our customers and user, and to what they're actually looking for, because we know searches are getting a lot more complex, especially if they're not on your website. And, people are searching a lot more generically. And I think that's really kind of hits the nail on the head in how do we do that in a way that is like efficient, cost effective, but also, we know that it's going to be very hard to go like fully automated in that sense, because you do want to add in your touch and you do want to find a way to kind of balance between how they get as much data as possible and as much scale as possible, but still have kind of the Perry Ellis touch there.
Right. I think if anything, it's almost like AI is like almost like a personal assistant. It helps reduce workload, but then you need somebody to give it a once over and make sure that it's in line with a personal touch that only really, I guess, a human could add. It definitely is invaluable when it comes to reducing workload. And if you even think about how, the general population uses AI, it's for example, writing emails that would take forever otherwise to write. But if you just plug it into an AI bot, they can spit it out in record time. And then you just give it a quick edit, and then you just saved all this time, and you're free to do the things that will actually move the needle or optimize, revenue on your website.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that, one of the things that we're seeing with these like language models is to an extent kind of, we call it garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right metadata to support it,
Right.
and the right attributes that you're assigning to each item, it will be very hard to generate these types of descriptions of prompts.
Right. You definitely need to set it and forget it. That's the ideal. But you always need to give it a once over. You always need to add like a little human touch. It's not completely a no-brainer. As much as I think we would all like it to be as seamless and intuitive as possible, it does take a little bit of setting parameters in order for it to be as smart as possible.
Okay, so let's take a look at the questions we have coming in. Let's have a look. Okay. Right, so Alexis, how can you maintain a personal touch when using AI? I'm concerned about the experiences feeling robotic to our customers.
Yeah, that's I think that's actually a big concern for a lot of different brands. I think customers are getting privy to the fact that we're using AI, and I think you can tell. I think if it doesn't come across as authentic or it comes across like it just came out of a robot somewhere, I think it's less effective. And there's like kind of that debate of like, okay, well, maybe it's less effective, but there's cost savings involved. And that's great, and you definitely need to weigh those pros and cons. I think just understanding that AI is only as smart as you are, you do need to set it up for success. And it is supposed to be machine learning and, it's artificial intelligence, but it's almost like a calculator in school. Like it's only as smart as you are, and it's only as smart as the information that you're giving it. And so that's where, being a good merchant and understanding your product and understanding your customer comes into play. Like I've said it a couple of times, I'm sounding like a broken record, but I'm not a fan of bells and whistles. I think that artificial intelligence should be subtle. Otherwise, I think customers are just try to avoid it in a way. And again, it just doesn't come across as authentic, and it becomes ineffective. I don't think that we should be showboating on our websites and just constantly hitting our customers over the head with these cool artificial intelligence features. It should just serve to make the shopping experience easier and help them, find what they're looking for. That's like the most practical use for it in terms of e-commerce.
So following up on that, how do you actually do the testing? Or what is that vetting process, or what does it look like in terms of once implementing a new AI solution?
Yeah, I think if you have the time and you're planning the right way, and you're scheduling things the right way, I think you need to test during non-peak timeframes, so beyond Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or after Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Again, front load all of those A/B tests and all that back end developer workload, those long-term projects, and you have plenty of room for trial and error. I always would suggest an A/B test, just because there are certain things that can be affected that you're not even aware of. So if you have something that reduces your page load time, that's probably number one when it comes to e-commerce. You could probably have like a very dysfunctional website, but if your pages load quickly, it's okay. Like there'll be some people purchasing. And so in that sense, making sure that you're not slowing down your site and creating a really negative customer experience where customers are getting frustrated. That's important to test out. And obviously like we're paying for these tools. So you need to analyze the ROAS, make sure that it actually does represent an increase, not just in revenue or sales or conversion, but also that it's outweighing the cost that it is to actually employ these tools. So, I always recommend an A/B test just to be doubly sure and just rule out if there's any page load issues or if it's creating, rage clicks or a negative customer experience. But then once you roll that out, you should be okay to, roll it out and have that confidence that the customer's experience is better and you're actually going to be helping your business rather than hurting it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, A/B tests in the end kind of neutralize the noise, right? You have a solution, you know that it might improve the customer experience or it might, look really great on the website, but in the end, taking into consideration, your customers, page load, as you said, and the overall experience, you can actually just neutralize everything, split the site into two, and
Exactly.
understand what is the value of the solution.
Exactly.
Okay, let's have a look. See if there's any more questions. Okay. What kind of feedback do you get from customers, if any, about your website experience? Anything with regards to like the wish list, pop-ups, for example?
Yeah. We get a lot of comments on, and it's funny. We didn't used to get comments about a wish list, but I think so. I think Amazon, being such a giant in the industry, I think, in e-commerce, you always have to keep your eye on Amazon because they just represent such a powerhouse in e-commerce, in the e-commerce space. And so generally, if Amazon starts doing something, I start to see feedback from customers that they want it on our website too. It's actually kind of funny, the timing and how quickly Amazon has something, and then all of a sudden we're getting these comments that they want that feature or that tool or that way of shopping available to them on the Perry Ellis website. And so, a couple of years ago, I heard nothing about wish lists or save for later features, but now I think that customers are using it on the Amazon website. That represents a trend in the industry where customers want to keep an eye on products and maybe wait for a deal, like during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for example. And so they want it to like already be in their cart, just save for later. They don't want to purchase it now. So I've been getting a lot of feedback that customers want that. And if you think about it from the merchant perspective, that's very useful for us because we can see what customers have their eye on, and we're better able to target those customers and have a more personalized experience just based on their customer behavior and that data alone. I have definitely been getting some comments. It's actually anecdotal, but I was watching somebody, a friend, he was shopping on one of our websites right in front of me. And he turned to me and said, "You got to stop with these pop-ups. Stop trying to get me to buy something." And that I think that just speaks to the importance of being subtle. Customers are smart. In e-commerce, they're incredibly smart and they know when they're trying to be sold to. And so that's like the importance of making sure that AI is subtle and it's just enhancing the customer experience without hitting them over the head with it. And just using that data and that behavior and that feedback just to make sure that we're not spamming these customers, and that we're not annoying them with the bells and whistles.
Wish lists are always really interesting on the data side, from my point of view, because you'll usually implement or start having a wish list. You won't see that much traction there, but the people using it are your core customers, right? These are the people who are going to eventually buy. And making that experience as like smooth as possible for them is basically incremental. We've seen a lot of customers from our side use the similar items, because if someone adds something to the wish list and it goes out of stock, especially if you're looking at Black Friday and looking to add something on sale, you go back to the wish list page. You see it's out of stock, but you'd always have kind of, here are similar items on sale or something like that. And then that also creates kind of a better experience for those like really engaged customers. But it makes a lot of sense because sometimes it won't be the highest revenue generating, but it will be the most incremental.
No, absolutely. And again, like any interaction with the site is good interaction. So if a customer is showing that they have that intent to buy by adding it to their wish list or to that's one more click. Most customers they don't have time for that. Or there's like that one click is just a huge inconvenience. So if a customer actually takes the time to add something to their wish list and be signed in to their account, that represents a customer that's kind of on the hook. They have a very high intent of purchasing that if even if it's at a later date, and at least we know that, and we can make sure that we're giving them a phenomenal customer experience, because we already know so much about them just based on what they added to their bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, we're just about out of time. So let's wrap things up. Lexus, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today and taking the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you everyone who's joined us for this conversation. Wishing you all a successful Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and check out our resource center for more helpful tips ahead of the holidays. Great. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.